Hey guys, it's nighttime. You can see outside my windows. It's dark. It's nighttime. I'm in my cozy PJs. I thought this might be a good time to read some bedtime stories. I've got 3 books that I picked out that I would like to read to you, and you can enjoy these before you go to bed in your cozy PJs. By the way, my dogs are running around crazy. They don't know it's bedtime. They're being a little crazy and chaotic. So if you see them in the background doing stuff, maybe they'll calm down. Okay, my first book is The Little House. And I have never read this book, so I'm excited to see what it's about. But look, it is a Caldecott Medal Award winner. So this is a special book that people really like and has won some awards. Let's see. Once upon a time, there was a little house way out in the country. She was a pretty little house, and she was strong and well built. The man who built her so well said, "This little house shall never be sold for gold or silver, and she will live to see our great-grandchild's great-great-grandchildren living in her." In the nights, she watched the moon grow from a thin new moon to a full moon and then back again to a thin old moon, and when there was no moon, she watched the stars. Way off in the distance, she could see the lights of the city. The little house was curious about the city and wondered what it would be like to live there. Arrow, Maple, it's bedtime. Time passed quickly for the little house, and she watched the countryside slowly change its seasons. In the spring, when the days grew longer and the sun warmer, she waited for the first robin to return from the south. She watched the grass turn green, she watched the buds on the trees swell, and the apple trees burst into blossom. She watched the children playing in the brook. In the long summer day, she sat in the sun and watched the trees cover themselves with leaves and the white daisies cover the hill. She watched the gardens grow, and she watched the apples turn red and ripen. She watched the children swimming in the pool. In the fall, when the days grew shorter and the nights colder, she watched the first frost turn the leaves to bright yellow and orange and red. She watched the harvest gathered and the apples picked. She watched the children going back to school. In the winter, when the nights were long and the days short and the countryside covered with snow, she watched the children, coasting and skating. Year followed year, the apple trees grew old and the new ones were planted. The children grew up and went away to the city, and now at night the lights of the city seemed brighter and closer. One day the little house was surprised to see a horseless carriage coming down the winding country road. Pretty soon there were more of them on the road and fewer carriages pulled by horses. Pretty soon along came some surveyors and surveyed a line. Pretty soon along came a steam shovel and dug a road through the hill that was covered with daisies. Then some trucks came and dumped big stones on the road. Then some trucks with little stones. Then some trucks with tar and sand. And finally a steamroller came and rolled it all smooth, and the road was done. Now the little house watched the trucks and automobiles going back and forth to the city. Gasoline stations, roadside stands, and small houses followed the new road. Everyone and everything moved much faster than ever before. More roads were made, and the countryside was divided into lots. More houses and bigger houses, apartment houses and tenement houses, schools, stores, and garages spread over the land and crowded around the little house. No one wanted to live in her and take care of her anymore. She couldn't be sold for gold or silver. So she just stayed there and watched. Now it was not so quiet and peaceful at night. Now the lights of the city were bright and very close, and the street lights shone all night. This must be living in the city, thought the little house, and didn't know whether she liked it or not. She missed the field of daisies and the apple trees dancing in the moonlight. I think my dogs are listening to the story now. Pretty soon, there were trolley cars going back and forth in front of the little house. They went back and forth all day and part of the night. Everyone seemed to be very busy, and everyone seemed to be in a hurry. Pretty soon, there was an elevated train going back and forth above the little house. The air was filled with dust and smoke, and the noise was so loud that it shook the little house. Now she couldn't tell when spring came, or summer, or fall, or winter. It all seemed about the same. Pretty soon, there was a subway going back and forth underneath the little house. She couldn't see it, but she could feel and hear it. People were moving faster and faster. No one noticed the little house anymore. They hurried without a glance. You can barely even see it under there. Pretty soon, they tore down the apartment houses and tenement houses around the little house and started digging big cellars, one on each side. The steam shovels dug down 3 stories on one side and 4 stories on the other side. Pretty soon, they started building up. They built up 25 stories on one side and 35 stories on the other side. Those tall buildings they're building next to that little house. Now the little house only saw the sun at noon and didn't see the moon or stars at night at all because the lights of the city were too bright. She didn't like living in the city. At night she used to dream of the country and the fields of daisies and the apple trees dancing in the moonlight. The little house was very sad and lonely. Her paint was cracked and dirty, her windows were broken, and her shutters hung crookedly. She looked shabby, though she was just as good a house as ever underneath. Then one fine morning in spring, along came the great-great-granddaughter of the man who built the little house so well. She saw the shabby little house, but she didn't hurry by. There was something about the little house that made her stop and look again. She said to her husband, "That little house looks just like the little house my grandmother lived in when she was a little girl. Only that little house was way out in the country, on a hill covered with daisies and apple trees growing around." They found out it was the very same house, so they went to the movers to see if the little house could be moved. They're going to move the whole house. The movers looked the little house all over and said, "Sure, this house is as good as ever. She's built so well we could move her anywhere." So they jacked up the little house and put her on wheels. Traffic was held up for hours, and they slowly moved her out of the city. Check that out. That's a big job to move a whole house. At first, the little house was frightened, but after she got used to it, she rather liked it. They rolled along the big road and they rolled along the little roads until they were way out in the country. When the little house saw the green grass and heard the birds singing, she didn't feel sad anymore. They went along and along, but they couldn't seem to find just the right place. They tried the little house here, and they tried the little house there. Finally, they saw a little hill in the middle of a field, and apple trees growing around. "There," said the great-great-granddaughter. "That's just the place." "Yes, it is," said the little house to herself. A cellar was dug on top of the hill, and slowly they moved the house from the road to the hill. The windows and shutters were fixed, and once again they painted her a lovely shade of pink. As the little house settled down on her new foundation, she smiled happily. Once again, she could watch the sun and the moon and the stars. Once again, she could watch spring and summer and fall and winter come and go. Once again, she was lived in and taken care of. She's a pretty little house. Never again would she be curious about the city. Never again would she want to live there. The stars twinkled above her. A new moon was coming up. It was spring, and all was quiet and peaceful in the country. And this is a fiction book, but it is about a true story. And this other page here tells about the author, and it tells when he and his brother were little, and they had a house very much like this one that got moved from one place to another back out into the country. So that is a sweet, sweet book. All right, I'm going to read one more. I wish everybody was here to vote for me, because you guys know how I like a vote. We have Water Can Be, and I know we've read this one before. And then there's this one, What Will These Hands Make? Maybe I should let one of my dogs vote. What do you think about that? Let me call it over here. Maple! Maple, where are you? Come here. Come here, Maple. Which book should we read, Maple? Oh. Which one? Which one do you like? Show me. Touch it with your nose. Oh, this one. Look. Maple chose this one. All right. Okay, Maple, let's listen to this one. You ready? Okay, you have to settle down so I can read. Okay. What will these hands make? Good choice, Maple. She really wants to see the pictures. What will these hands make? Oh, looks like a grandma with her grandkids. What will these hands make? A teacup for a child, a bowl round and shiny, a quilt to warm, a chair for listening. All that stuff that you can make. Looks like it's somebody's birthday. I see a happy birthday banner in the back of this page. What will these hands make? A hat for a baby's head, a wall to walk along, a gate to open, a garden for many. I hope you guys are taking this time that you're at home to make some cool stuff. What will these hands make? A bicycle to ride, a sidewalk safe, a haven for others, a bench to rest a while. Look at all that stuff in that picture. Somebody had to make all of that. What will these hands make? A bridge to cross a river, a boat to sail the sea, a house for swallows, a home for families. Ooh, look at that. You know what I like in this picture that somebody made? That delicious cake. Somebody should make that for me. What will these hands make? A sign to point the way, a bouquet to celebrate, a gift to give, a basket for everything. What will these hands make? A raven from a tree, a cabinet for treasure, a painting bright, a flag to wave hello. What I love about these pictures, guys, is that everything is kind of all one color. It's kind of black and white or black and brown, except for it has these little pops of color in there. There's a little white one, and there's a little blue back there. Those some neat illustrations. There's that cake I wanted. Will these hands make a knife to cut carrots, a cake 6 layers high, a spoon to stir, a song for a parade? Oh, look at that. Like those yellow leaves in that picture. Will these hands make a pillow for Grandma, a pair of slippers for her feet, a candle to light, a bread to pull apart? All that stuff. This makes me think of our Chinese New Year lessons and celebrations. I see a Chinese lantern back there, and that looks like a fish, one of those fish that are at the Chinese New Year that they put into the noodle dishes like Miss Karen has in her dance class. Will these hands make a box to hold memories, a bear to sit beside, a book to share, a blanket woven tight? That picture. You're having some kind of celebration there. Will these hands make a fiddle to play quick, a stack of wood for the night, a play to cheer, a lantern to guide the way back home? Will these hands make a safe place to be? I think those hands are definitely making a safe place to be. Will these hands make a community? What will your hands make? And this says, trace your hand here. We're not going to do that because this is a library book, but that would be a good idea to do on your own. You could get some paper and you could trace your hand. And then maybe inside of your hand that you traced, you could draw pictures of things that you want to make with your hands. That would be a great idea. Okay, that is the end of this book. It tells some cool information about how the illustrations were made in this book. The images were cut from black paper using an X-Acto blade. My left hand held down the paper while my right hand cut lines and shapes. My hands made what I always wanted to make since I was a child, a book for you. And that's what the author said about this book. The author also illustrated this book. That was a sweet book. Good choice, Maple. All right, guys. Nighty night night. Everybody have sweet dreams, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.